friends, my name is Blake Shook and I've gone from 2 hives in my backyard to over 30,000 hives. And my goal in these videos, as always, is to take all the lessons I've learned along the way, the good ones, the bad ones, and everything in between, and try to distill them down to helpful tips for you as a small-scale beekeeper. Today, let's talk a little bit about sun versus shade. It's a huge question if you're new to beekeeping. You know, should I put my bees in the full sunlight, in the full shade, somewhere in between? And the answer is, it depends. In general, the general rule of thumb is that bees do best in the full sunlight. I know that seems a little counterintuitive, especially if you're in a southern climate, because it gets so hot. You know, here I am in August, and you've got all these beehives behind me, and as you can see, a lot of them are in the full sun. I have some in the back corner behind me that are in the partial shade. In the summer months, I do like it if my hives can get some partial shade during the heat of the day. It just means they have to work a little bit less to keep the hive cool. But a strong hive can keep a hive cool even in the hot summers. Now, the exception is during the summer months, I always want my bees to be at least 2 boxes. That gives them more space to keep the hive cooler rather than the sun beating down directly on the lid of a single-story hive. Now, you can see a lot of these hives are apame hives, or they're the insulated hives. Those tend to do fine even as single-story hives in the summer. But if it's an uninsulated box, you want to make sure there's at least 2 on a hive if they're in the sunlight. If they're not in the sun, then they can get by with a standard wooden box with just 1 box, but they need to be pretty much in the full shade. 2 boxes in a wood hive, they're going to over summer just fine in the full sunlight. Now, in the spring months, I prefer them to be in full sun. Same with the fall and winter. Full sun is better. So summertime in a hot climate is the only exception where they do a little better if they are in partial shade in the afternoons. Other than that, year-round full sun is preferable. Now, again, you're not going to kill a hive in the full sunlight in the summer unless it's a single-story hive in a wooden box and it's a weak hive. Those tend to be the ones that struggle the most in full sunlight through the summer. Otherwise, they tend to do pretty well. I'm going to show you though what we see. I'm going to pick up the camera and show you a little bit of the difference between a hive in the full sun versus in the shade. So we've got this hive right here, and you can see they are not fanning. I mean, it is the heat of the day. It's about 100 degrees outside, and there is no fanning going on. I mean, they aren't even trying to cool the hive because they're in the shade. Versus if I go over to a hive in the full sun, even though it's a mostly insulated hive, on this one the top 2 boxes are wooden and the bottom's insulated, but you can see there's still a lot of fanning going on. I mean, those bees are fanning really hard to keep the hive cool. So they'll both survive perfectly fine, but this hive is just going to work a little bit harder to keep the hive cool. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if they're in that partial shade in the afternoon, they're just going to have to work a little bit less. But if you have to choose one or the other, I recommend going with the full sunlight over full shade. Hives in full shade can develop different brood diseases. Small hive beetles like the shade better. They stay a little cooler, especially in the fall and winter months. They don't warm up as quickly. So if you have to pick one, pick the full sun. Otherwise, if you have an option, partial shade in the afternoon is okay. So if this was helpful, then give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.